Weight Watchers now offers access to affordable GLP-1s.
Weight Watchers has everything I need, from weight loss medications to nutrition support and help with my side effects.
With our program, our members are losing more weight with expert nutrition and side effect support.
Weight Watchers prescribing GLP-1 medications. It's been life-changing.
Better results, expert support, lose more weight, make it last. Get started for as low as $25 at WeightWatchers.com.
All medications require eligibility and prescription. First month as low as $25 with a 12-month Med Plus plan. Does not include the cost of GLP-1 medications.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast.
Question of the audience. Are you tired of juggling too many tools that don't talk to each other, leaving your business stuck instead of scaling? That's exactly what our guest will tackle. How to simplify growth by connecting technology, creativity, and strategy into one powerful system. In this episode, he'll share how his growth operating system helps founders and teams automate smartly, build scalable operations, and turn bold ideas into real results. If your business feels scattered, our guest today is Marcus Gochin from Minds on Fire. He's the founder of Minds on Fire, a company where technology, creativity, and growth strategies meet to help businesses build smarter systems and stronger brands. With over 15 years in marketing, sales, and product innovation, he's guided organizations across North America and beyond, from e-commerce and finance to manufacturing and sustainability, turning ideas into practical, scalable systems. He also combines strategic insight with a hands-on approach, using curiosity, empathy to bridge technology with the human experience, helping entrepreneurs and enterprises alike spark growth that lasts. Marcus, it's an absolute pleasure having you here today. Thank you for joining us. Do you have a favorite quote or saying, sir?
You know what? I couldn't decide. There are too many to choose from. I have so many that have guided me. I mean, I find with everything that we're building today with different systems that other systems, I think when everyone comes to the gold rush, sell shovels might be where I land on a quote that comes to mind often.
Well, that just works really well. So, what tripped the wire on Minds on Fire? Hey, I got a rhyme in there.
Oh, you must do this for a living. I love it. Mine's on fire. So a few pieces. The name Mine's on Fire was it's a big personal piece for me. I mean, I've always been a big reader. I love science. I love energy physics. I'm a total nerd for all this stuff. And neuroscience is an area that I read about quite often. It was, I think, 2011. I read an article about a study done on ambitious people. Set researchers, I believe it was Caltech. They brought a group of people into a room, to do an experiment on them. They put them all under an fMRI. They had these people broken out based on, low ambition, high ambition. They'd interviewed them beforehand. So they had a few control groups. And when they put everyone under a functional MRI, watched how their brain activity lit up and had them think about different things. They'd have you think about lying on the couch, doing nothing, the way to, you're chasing your dream, you're chasing your vision. They'd have entrepreneurs in thinking about when they're doing what they really want to do with their lives. They found that when someone is thinking ambitiously, when they are thinking at the peak of their vision, of that ambition, the way the energy moves through their mind resembles how energy moves in a fire. And as soon as I read that, it blew my mind. Like, that was the coolest thing I'd ever read in my entire life. And just, it didn't start the business name immediately. It started with a bit of a personal mantra, be a mind on fire, be ambitious, think about vision. It sets your mind on fire. It sets your mind on fire. And that I held that name secretly in the back of my mind for, maybe 5 or 6 years before I turned it into the actual company name. I had to get it right, make sure I launch it in the right way. But that's where it comes from. It's got a real neuroscientific base. And then, the entrepreneurial world has taken really good care of me. It's been my best passion ever. So I don't know. It's the best connection name I've ever come up with to bridge the two.
Marcus, one thing that interests me that sounds like you're a bit of a dichotomy is I've run into creatives and I run into systems guys, and I find they can't talk to one another without a fist fight. So, how did you jump these two hoops?
Oh, that's a great question. I think with a bit of kicking and screaming. I definitely started out on the creative side. coming with ideas and wanting to build absolutely everything. And I had the fortune of when I moved from Guelph to Kitchener Waterloo, I came to University of Waterloo for material nanoscience and business. I had always had this interest in business. I love the idea of it. I'll admit, I still thought being a business owner just meant you got to tell people what to do and you chose your own hours and all the fun stuff. But I came to Waterloo for both. I had been fascinated with science forever, so I was thinking, career. You absolutely have to go and do something with a job at the end of it, do something defined. I have to do something with a good title on it. And then I took these electives in entrepreneurship as kind of keep myself interested, just something to be a little bit more fun while I was trying to do my nanoscience degree. And I just I always knew that I loved science, but business making a lot more sense. I already knew that I had a scientific mind, at least the interest for it. I love the systems. I love how it's all love the scientific process. I love that there's proof behind everything. But once I discovered that in business, you can apply the same systems with a little flexibility, with a little taking the world for what it is, taking the human condition for what it is. And I realized that systems do work, they're just much more difficult to implement. And you have to sort of, I call it respecting the market. You have to respect the market with anything you put out. Once I realized that, I don't know, I was hooked. I didn't even finish the nanoscience program. I ended up going to work for incubators and trying out my own platforms. For better or for worse. I think it's been for better, after about 15 years of playing around in it. But I started with systems, and then I think working for different startups and different businesses and a few, really creative mentors just helped me channel that, almost open it up into the creativity. But I think it was the right order. It lets me come in with systems first. So you don't come in with a business too pie in the sky and you get to play with it and experiment and see how much creativity you can put in while keeping that system alive. That's a great question.
So the growth operating system, it almost sounds like an OS, operating system off of off of a box, like whether you're buying it from Windows or Apple. What is the growth operating system? What's up? Talk to me. Tell us a story. Give us insights.
Thank you. So I was born in the startup world in automation and marketing, with sales mixed in. I mean, I would say I'm a salesperson first, so I was very used to speaking to people face to face. I just having to close your own deals, and then getting into marketing. It's like more expansive sales. You get to spread messages across wider ranges. You get to put more data to it. You get to digitize it. The growth operating system, it started as more a service because coming out of the startup world, when Minds on Fire started, since I came out of sales, marketing, and product design, we were working all with entrepreneurs and all around Southern Ontario to begin, out of Communitech, Innovation Factory, We Tech Alliance, and then a few in between. We started getting a little more international, which was a lot of fun. We've been to at least a couple times, so organizing pitch competitions down to the States. The growth operating system started out as us figuring out automation for people. It started with siloed systems, and especially when you're around startups and incubators, you're always trying out new platforms all over the place. So we got into integrations. So we started out early, before Zapier came in and made it way too easy and made me hate that it didn't exist 15 years ago. We started out with it was a very packed together, a quilt of different systems that we put together. Now, fast forward a bunch of years, especially since the pandemic, we still have our marketing and digital services that we provide for people, but now we've gotten into building our own platforms. And AI has helped us, it helps you really, I'd say, fill the cracks. I don't like to focus too much on it. I like to have a core functionality that still affects, touches people and really aligns with what people need. But the growth operating system then became integrations, integrating all your marketing, all of your lead generation, your email marketing, your nurturing campaigns, weaving them together. And now we're starting to build this for larger companies in their specific industries. So now we can build a platform that is a CRM, an ERP, as well as automation, all bundled into one, built for your industry, built for your specific use case. And so we are still trying to figure out how to make the universal growth operating system for absolutely everybody. But so far, there still needs to be a little bit of customization for each group that we come in with. And so right now we're building, we have one that we're experimenting with on general intelligence. This will be to entrepreneurs that is trained on conversations that entrepreneurs have with each other and mentors so that we can help people design ideas in the first place. That's more on an intellectual idea growth operating system. But more tangibly, we're building in FinTech. We have one that's going to combine mutual funds, ETFs, stock trading into an intelligence system with algorithms backed in, trying to really give some powerful tools into the finance world. We have another one in trades. So we're building for landscaping as well as plumbing, electrical, and mechanical right now. And we're trying to capture different industries and silos that make sense. So we have a few clients that have come in to be our core part. We build these systems for certain industries, which I'm excited about. I just came from speaking with our plumbing contractor who's in GC and mechanical electrical. We're going to take over trades at this platform. I absolutely can't wait. And then on the fintech side, that's one we're really launching into. There is, I would say, two levels to it. For companies that are operating system is that quilt of current AI, of CRMs, of automation software that you put together, which we can integrate and have all talk to each other. And then the enterprise version is what we're really trying to run with, where we bring a company in who wants to invest in a platform for themselves, and then they get to be that kind of that prime user of this platform and really have it designed for them to connect in their industry. So it's a few pieces. I hope that was clear.
No,
Well,
it was really, really extensively good. Sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
this is exciting. And I've seen people on this journey, including that let's spend $500,000 and deliver no product whatsoever because we got lost.
Oh, that's blasphemy. That's blasphemy. You can't do that anymore.
Here's a question. Is part of the dream to work out the kinks with an enterprise system and then make it generic enough to white label it for a $99 solution to anyone with a Best Buy account or no?
Wayne, you're so smart. I love your questions. So, yes, the idea started with would we be able to almost code ambition? I mean, that's really my absolute dream. And I want to say we're close, but that would be a total lie. Every time we build out a piece of it, we realize there are gaping holes in it and different pieces. And it's very, I mean, who could possibly code the human condition? I mean, that's huge. I mean, for everything we see. So yeah, we are trying. The new strategy we've taken is as we build these industry specific platforms, there are always more generic, more, omnifunctional lessons that we learn. I mean, even when we were, as we're working with the landscaping group and now speaking to the plumbing and contracting, we're seeing tons of overlap between the way we connect in employees, the way we funnel their habits, the ways they work, different reporting and information that we pull on their behavior based on different features or their own jobs or different tasks that they put through. So we have a long way to go, but absolutely, we have at the absolute want to build. We would be able to workflow that could be plugged into any business, any industry, find the commonalities. And then I know that with how much, landscaping and finance are never going to be similar enough that they'll buy the exact same platform. But we see it as we build these different industry platforms that we may be able to draw out maybe an AI platform, maybe something that's a universal integrator between different platforms that speak to different industries. So a lot of work to do, a lot of way to go still on that side, but yeah, that's absolutely where we're looking to go eventually.
As you were describing that, do you remember Clippy?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
your physiological response was yes, I do. So, kind of a quirky character, right? And they had other icons in the platform. So, are you looking to build not the OS, the operating system, but a platform that's kind of universal fit. You see that in the email, the spreadsheet, the database, in the power, the slide deck, right? I'm trying to stay away from the brand names, right? Because hey, if I'm gonna mention the name, for a small dime. However, that said, are you looking to build something that's kind of a universal fit? And then, if I happen to be working for an accounting firm, I tweak it this way. If I happen to be working for a landscaper, I tweak it that way. But you also mentioned, so it's a two-parter. You also mentioned something about behaviors and triggering it. So are you also going to have it's almost like having a mini coach built in, someone that encourages you to go, hey, that's a good idea. Or, yay team, like you've hit a KPI point, right? And like thumbs up or, it's sort of like when you're typing into social media, certain platforms, you type in good morning and all of a sudden you have, or it's New Year's Day and you're typing a text message, all of a sudden the stars explode. Are you going to build in those things that are like, hey, that's kind of cool. And to tickle the inner soul of and
I mean, I wanna say yes, but I mean, my mind is screaming at me right now with just market forces and the economy, like how generalist we'd have to make it will absolutely make it impossible. I think OpenAI already beat us to it, so I don't wanna go competing against all the LLMs on the planet. And I know we absolutely want to. I mean, we are trying to pull out these general processes, the general piece of wisdom that we find, and we do have an AI that we've built in the background that analyzes it, and we run a report on it, every couple months with any of the platforms that we're running. We have a number of prompts built into it that will just try to shed all the industry data, try to take off anything. We have a lot of prompts that look to negative out information. Forget anything that could be related to this industry. Forget this, to try to find commonalities in human nature. Now, so far, that's only been beneficial for our own strategy conversations on the next forum. We have not had that aha moment yet where we think this is unique enough to be sold to everybody and still unique enough not to seem like a too simple of a solution or something that we just need to give out for free. So I don't know. I suspect in the end, we're going to say no to the generalist platform and just keep using it to build smarter systems in each category and each industry that we. I mean, that has been very effective for us. I mean, that has already applied to. We had the FinTech platforms building after landscaping. They informed each other. Now that we're going HVAC space. That landscaping data is absolutely informing that. So I think if I'm being totally honest and realistic, it'll end up being a cool, really sneaky Intel platform that we have for ourselves, but not a product of.
Marcus, in my 400 episodes of podcasting, is that a great deal of solopreneurs are actually truly technicians at heart. They got the sign in the door with their name on it, but they have 15 employees, five vans, and they're still wearing a tool belt. I could see you designing a system that you know why they need it, how it will benefit them, and they will actually die kicking and screaming before you let them implement it. Tell me about that mindset.
Oh my gosh. It's like you were just at my last meeting. Like I absolutely.
the customer is in a headlock at the same time he's going, no, you must drink from the water here.
I know. Oh my gosh, let me even think. I'm trying to come up with a better answer than one I tried to cram into the conversation sort of the last time. I I'm not sure. I think that as we build these out, the only way that we've been able to move someone onto a CRM, especially when they're a smaller company, I don't want to say is to force it on them. I mean, we've had a few where we'll just activate the automation. So that this is our sort of quick way of getting through that. Sometimes even I'll get on a call with the client, and especially when it's trades, it's about 50-50. Like where they say they just know it can't help them. There's absolutely no way. If they're over 40, I might hear the you can't teach an old dog new tricks line or something like that, which I always find hilarious. I I think that as it gets the automations become more invisible, even more and more invisible, that will. And what I've tried to do, especially now that we're getting more committed into the trades, like now that the landscaping is rolling, now that we're looking at more trades and spreading out on that side, I think we're just going to dip the system in and have it turn on automatically. You put in your profile, you start entering your jobs. This is one thing that we're already trying with the landscaping platform is we're just baking it into the entire platform. What we have found that gets us around this is, when someone says, I don't want the AI or I don't want the CRM, where we've been able to sneak it in behind is with reporting. So what we do, everybody loves reports. All these owners and trades, they all comes down to square footages, linear cost. It all comes down to your P&L. So they love the data. That is one thing that I find they're quicker to adopt. If we tell them we have reports, then they love it. If we tell them we have AI and automation, they tell us why there's no way it'll help and no way they need it, which I think is funny. I think they're just like, they're trying to rebel a little bit against all the new terminology. So what we've done is we bake it into the reporting where you have your reporting, it's analyzing off the data that you give off invoices, off timing, off your expense. And we try to put in as many touch points that are automated as possible. When we for the landscaping platform, owners will assign a job to their technicians, but then technicians don't have to do much. Once they show up on site, GPS pings and signs them into the app. It starts the report, it lists them on the invoice. They may still need to take a few pictures, things like that, but we make sure we're automatically gathering data. Then we have that in reporting. We have a great system for prompting people to run reports on different pieces of information. And then we just got AI insights back into them. We found that your projects are taking 8% over the last 2 months. Found that and we're very sensitive with these pieces if we get into employee comparison or employee comparison. But we'll say like this team is doing better than this one. This one is a little more efficient. This one's spending more, spending less. That's the best I've got for you so far, is that we just bake it into the platform and sort of force them to use it in a way that makes it feel fun and good to use. I think that's absolutely changing. I mean, we're all surrounded by different applications all the time. I'm sure that they'll have to get on the bandwagon eventually. I mean, even manufacturing is starting to do text. Everybody will get there eventually. But that's the best we've got. We try to make it invisible and just show them the benefit first, and then if they start playing with it more, great. If not, we figure they'll come around eventually once those reports give them enough insight.
So when you come up to a company, I guess what is the trigger for them? What is the, oh my gosh, I'm hitting the wall here. Well, if you have one piece of software running, it's not such a big deal. But as soon as add in the accounting package, which depending on the size of your business and who you're dealing with for an accounting agency, like for bookkeeping and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you got to start tracking staffing, right? So there's an HR component, right? All of a sudden you realize these things are coming at you. What is the flag that most turns most people's heads to come to you? Whether it's the tradesperson or someone who's a coach, if they sometimes you know what you need, sometimes you have no idea what you need, but you need something. There's some sort of pain that's showing up. What are those pains looking like for those?
It's a good question. Well, let me think through. I mean, there's always a ton of consultation as soon as you come into business. And I love to talk. I'm a very curious person. I usually find that, especially, we're talking about how, people don't always want to adopt it or they don't quite know what they need. I find as soon as you talk to someone about the actual vision they have for the business, the idea will pop into their minds along the way. Even if I meet someone that says initially, I have my CRM, what better could you possibly do? How could this be any better? I think I'm already set. I don't even have to challenge them in a way, like a sneaky marketing tactic. I can just talk to them about you start this in the first place. Did you see this business as being in the future? Because as soon as you get someone thinking about the actual dream that they had to build this and the serious vision of it, I find that AI and automation comes extremely clearly to them. Because as soon as you talk about the vision, And then you ask one more question about, now, how's the business going today? It's like someone, you finally got them looking at their horizon, and now they have to remember all the clouds and obstacles and buildings in the way of them getting there. I find that's typically where the conversation, once you have someone just tell you, we know we can do this, we know we could do it better, we want to go in this direction, but we're not getting there. And then you show them a few tools and how it could fit into their lives. Usually they're willing to try, then they try 2, then they try 3. That's why as we build these growth operating systems, we still have our toolkit of individual bits and pieces so that we can sort of ease people into it if they're not quite ready to take on the full piece. I find it's just bringing people back to that vision and that horizon that they're looking at, and then letting them just think through how many things are in the way and showing them you can pull some pathways through to get them there faster.
Marcus, I feel like I've fallen in love, but that's another story. I find many tradespeople, especially owner manager tradespeople, are much happier working in their business than on their business. And I was wondering, and maybe it's a little weird, and there's there's low hanging fruit to get into the door. But if you were using an avatar that was an employee, if you were creating someone who actually had a face in this um, LM, what would the ideal avatar be eliminating for the, let's say, 20-person plumber firm? Middle management?
And like
Secretary?
avatar, you mean like our ideal profile, like that kind.
So if you told them that you that you were an employer man, that you were an employee, you employed people, and you were an employee, and that your people were actually robots, but you didn't tell them they were robots, what positions would they be applying for in your business?
Could the robots even be managed? Like, I don't know.
Well, according to our most recent report on AI, apparently it doesn't like being told it's going to be turned off. It connived the mishappenstance of the person that was to do it. They were doing a test on all the platforms, not just one. So
I hear you. You know, that's interesting you say. I read an article, I think it was only a couple weeks ago, that they put a test environment of several robot workers, and the manager started convincing the other robots to take a break earlier. Like, they actually figured out, they started trying to convince its employees under this management robot that they should stop working. I don't know. I mean, I feel like, 'cause, and there's a kind of 2 ways we could go with this. I mean, there's, Skynet, where these robots are seriously conscious and can run off on you if you don't say the right thing the whole time. And then there's, how we hope it goes and everything's programmed within a box, and there's the robot laws and all those sorts of things. I think if that does go as far as I know it will, because there are crazy human beings out there who just love innovation way too much, I think that that person brought in under that team of robots, they would be both a frontline employee and the director. Because I think it would be showing those robots the actual work they were supposed to do that would train them to be the best employees possible. Oddly, think about that. I think, and when the robots aren't around, I'd make sure to build that person up. Director of sales, director of implementation. I love it. You're up at the top, and then when a robot's in the room, it's like you better have a tool belt on and some steel toes at all times, like, because we're gonna have to train them what they need to do rather than train them what a manager is. I think it'll be totally backwards, from how we manage people today. Oh, that's an interesting question.
So when you walk up into a business and they're kind of working along. So in other words, they do their accounting again. Going back to the tradesperson, they have the accounting piece, they have their supplier piece, they have their workforce, etc. And out they go. And you come along and you provide them an ecosystem that breathes and lives the business. In other words, just in time delivery, the staffing's in place, cost impact, linear cost, cost per square foot, right? Either to do a project estimate and production, getting the work done. Are you on target? Are there ways to save things, right? Whether it's a different product, different staff, whatever the case is. Do you find when you bring that whole bundle into that space, or it's manufacturing, or it's a dentist's office, that they now have standard operating procedures that are embedded, that they have their business has just increased in value because the system is well defined. Well, like in other words, if someone comes in, the bank says, you want to expand, you're looking for capital, or you're looking for more capital from the bank, from a lender, or venture capital, whatever the case might be. Do you find that provides a larger bonus to the owner, especially if they're looking at, it's not going to be a generational thing. I'm going to look to do this for 20 years, and then I want off the merry-go-round.
Oh, 100%. That I love that you brought that up. Some of our best referral partners, apart from just how we generate leads through some marketing, referrals are still my favorite piece because you can really find the intention of people. That's my favorite people. That's my favorite way to find a new client, a new prospect, a new conversation that we have. I have never heard of a business in trades being sold for anywhere near what the owner wants unless it has a system that can run absolutely the same way that it did without that owner. Now, exit planners, M&A, finance, these are areas I love speaking with people in finance. I mean, this is even why we committed so much so into these two fintech platforms because we just work so well together. As soon as we say system to a business owner that's off on their own. Maybe they get it, maybe they don't. They usually say they do, but then, it all changes in execution and implementation. When we come to someone in finance, they know a system is the number one thing every time. Now, I'm not going to try to make up a number on how much more you're worth once you get a growth system in. I mean, that would be disingenuous, but I guarantee at the very least, if you do not have a system plugging these different pieces together, the difference isn't necessarily what you are worth, it's whether you are sellable at all or not. Someone comes in and they look at your business, $10 million, and they ask you how you do it, and you show them piles of paper, and that one person for minimum wage knows this system. One person who's your head of all of your plumbing operations knows one system. As soon as they can picture a single person leaving and seeing that system collapse, they're done. It doesn't matter what word you put on it. Because from at least my experience, seeing in the startup world, watching companies get acquired with investors, even dealing with a lot of pitch competitions, without a system, it has this absolute waiting to fail, maybe pile of money. Because as soon as they feel like it's based on people, whether it's you or a certain individual in the company or one crew or one team, it's basically not sellable unless you find someone who's absorbing you for assets and inventory and, a bit of capacity. Anyone that wants to see a multiplier, to have anybody come into your business and not just look at revenue for the last 2 years minus some depreciation and then try to hack you down at the knees so for your valuation. That system lets you have a completely different conversation, rather than trying to come up with just your finances and prove that you have a number of clients, suddenly you can have the we're scalable, revenue, it's repeatable, it's predictable. As soon as you do that, you talk multipliers instead of talking about, half of this, quarter of this, only 1 year of this. It completely changes the conversation. And the system on its own, we still have to prove that the business is working, but if a business has sold anything consistently for several years, then there is already a system lurking within that. And with the breadth of capabilities that we have and the technology available now, our teams, shameless plug, we do this, sure, but even with tools that people can find themselves, you just need to glue those pieces together and suddenly even a business only doing a few 100,000, a couple million a year becomes sellable even at a multiple to the right buyer. Yeah, absolutely. The system, it has a lot of strengths.
The most famous example of this happening externally, I think, are vet clinics, where Dr. Marcus Vet is being replaced by Dr. Vet Corp across Canada that puts the systems in place. And every now and again, the customer grumbles, but the vet's much happier because he can actually work 30 hours a week instead of 70. Are these electricians and plumbers going to need basically corporate managers to buy them out over 5 years to make this happen? Or are these guys going to get their own so they're driving their own bus on the way out the door?
It definitely gives you both options. I mean, it makes you sellable, but the only reason that it's sellable is because now it's much easier to manage. You can focus on growing it because there's always sort of a control panel. You're still seeing your dashboards, you're still seeing your scorecards, you're still seeing all the data visualized on whatever piece of the platform we build it in for you. Typically on a dashboard, some people like to customize it into their CRM or what have you. No, I think that there are some that, especially in the trade side, if they're absolutely die hard, they don't want to take that tool belt off ever, like they're going into the ground with that toolkit on, then okay, so be it. You can still sell the business, keep yourself in, take the corporate manager, maybe don't talk to them too often and whatnot. But no, the growth operating system is not it's not with solely acquisition in mind. It's more just to give you options. You can keep on tools for the rest of your life if you want, but have a system that just doesn't require you to stay at the office until 9 p.m. doing all the paperwork or trying to sort through what you spent that day. Or it gives you really whatever you need. If you want to stay in business, it's freedom. If you want to exit the business, it gives you the potential to ever exit. If you want to give it to your next generation, it's another thing to teach. If you're an electrician, you're going to apprentice your children on job sites. Well, okay, spend 1 hour showing them how the system works and give them a username and password. And then there you go. It's like apprenticeship expanded into running a business at the same time as learning the actual skill, and execution of the job. So I don't know. I love that I'm coming into AI when we are, and that we've gotten to play with it from the beginning. Those are the options it gives you.
I think mostly of Mr. Rooter, one of the few companies that use these systems and marketing to make it a franchise. Do you see Phil Electronic or Electrical sort of mentally deciding their franchise, whether they actually do the paperwork or not, so that they can actually sell it to the new guy, whether a lead hand or someone off the street, like it was a franchise?
That's a good question. I'm a little biased only because we've worked with a few franchises through one mergers and acquisition partner that we have here. And they've only told me mostly nightmare stories of trying to start a franchise. So I think I'd even back up a little bit and say, from my perspective, it's very expensive, very legally strenuous to build one or even attempt to build one. I would even say that this could make the franchise model obsolete. I mean, instead of having to spend $200,000 on all the legal work, all of trying to define what the restrictions are, where the liabilities lie, what you can, what you can't do, technology gives you all the holds that you need. I mean, we've had user permissions for, CRMs that have been around 10, 15 years. I would say, with this ability where you can easily, we can go to a Go High Level system, we can go to one of our platforms, we can go to Zapier, and we can just duplicate, 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 duplicate. Suddenly, you've recreated an entire business model, an entire workflow, an entire structure of a business in literally 30 seconds on the same license that you started it with. And then you could sell that to someone with a simple agreement just on protecting IP, maybe an NDA and a service agreement. I think it will allow more franchise. I think the way franchising is done today may be made, even obsolete by what we could do now with automation and replication.
You've talked or we touched on it, incubators and accelerators. That's way different than belts, electrical panels, and oh look, my toilet isn't toileting at this point in time. So in the incubator world, how does this whole approach help? Say if a person's launching a new SaaS, a software as a service, and they found on a market that says, "Hi, we need this." Do you help them deliver it? Do you help them integrate it? Where do you come into this? Where do you come into this box? Uh, yeah, I'm going to let you talk because I have more questions that can spin off of this. But over to you.
I love it. I mean, I know we did incubators and accelerators, co-work selling. We keep that outlet because that's very near and dear to my. I mean, I came up out of Communitech, which is like the absolute coolest incubator and accelerator, I think, in Canada, like out of Kitchener. I remember I was 18. I already had all of this ambition, but I didn't know where to put it. And like I said, I thought I was going to control my own hours and I'll be the boss and entrepreneurship will be so cool. I'll get to build things all day. And when I walked into Communitech for the first time, realizing that there was actually a place where people could sit protected, insulated, trained, coached, and supported by each other and these people above them to build ideas. I mean, that was the first thing that ever set my mind on, honestly. I absolutely love that. I Testing different apps is absolutely crucial. Now that we've gotten up to speed, now that we have the capacity and the time to try different pieces, and also knowing that we'd already be worth $1 trillion now if we could just pick the best apps immediately and deploy them right away. So I see it as sort of a way of us to keep a back and forth. When we work with incubators and accelerators, we come to them with technologies and not the full growth system because yeah, that's it goes beyond what they're looking for. It's not necessary. When we go into them, we kept it broken down into individual pieces. We're usually calling it, go to market strategy, go to market testing. They'll try a bit of marketing out and then automate it so that it's cheaper for the entrepreneur. So that's a bit of a different one. That service I'd say is a bit of a standalone from what we do with growth operating systems, but only standalone in terms of it isn't the same service that we're offering. They're both extremely connected because we're adding products into our kind of mid-level service before you get into the whole system out of these incubators all the time. So my goal of it is that we come to these co-working spaces, incubators, accelerators. We offer them packages of some of our more piecemeal offerings and systems that we have because we know that these entrepreneurs will see one and think, that'll get me to my first sale. That'll get me over this hurdle. That'll let me develop this last little piece of the MVP so I can still go bang on everyone's door and try to figure out how to sell it. And then as we build them and we get them to the point where they get that first, where they get their MVP existing client, then we almost have the ability to, I don't want to give back. Like we don't do it for free, offering the whole thing, like just to, be honest. But it is still a way for us to almost be that next marketing channel. We support younger, not actual young like age, but just young in the process entrepreneurs. If we can be that first spark for them, then they get the chance to see if they can launch their product into bigger and badder markets, to see if they find something they never expected. So us working with these groups, we love it because it helps the entrepreneurs, it helps those incubators and accelerators stay relevant, stay on the cutting edge. And then it becomes almost our testing ground while we still go and chase these larger platforms, up into medium to large scale companies. So that's where it connects. Maybe it's just through me that I'm like obsessed with staying in touch with incubators and accelerators because I love that space, but it has paid dividends. I mean, I'd say this year we have at least 4 new systems that have come out of us helping incubators that are now integrated into our growth operating system and multiple others. And it's a way of us to just keep ourselves sharp, like keep our thumb on the pulse of the industry while we go off and try to build these, absolute world domination machines in every industry.
Marcus, I have a shameless plug that you may already do, but in life insurance, they used to sell it by actually parking the hearse at the door.
I did not know they did that.
Pretty close. But the neat thing is, you have, I would call them coaches. You have coaches who actually sell operating systems, SOPs, as the way to get the lead hands or the kid in the business. And often there is a CRM or an operating system component. Um, the unless you put these in place, we're calling the auctioneer tomorrow if you have a stroke, or who does the hand holding when you get a yes? Is that your team or is that a team of coaches that work with you? Who gets the guy to So it replaces middle management with systems when it's very hands-on, takes 9 to 18 months, even if you get the software sale. Who does the implementing of that handholding?
In terms of when we're talking to a client about a system they may want to bring in, along the process. With these platforms, I like to stay involved in that piece. When it's a new platform we're launching into a new industry, especially, I mean, apart from the fact that that's just really what the business was born to do. If I don't do that, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, I feel like I'll be just going on vacation or something like that. That's not fair. Now, that's my absolute favorite part of the process. I mean, because when we go into a new company looking for a platform, and you're absolutely right, there are months that it takes. We have different infrastructures, we have base functionality and different components that we own, so we can white label to sort of speed up the process here and there. I love that. That's me, as well as my whoever it takes, my designer, my lead coder. We have a company that we partner with on the more complicated systems architecture when it comes in. There are always other people in on that call, but that part, that's the conversation that I want to be in. That's probably a quarter of my week is just weekly calls that I have with our latest handful of clients that we're bringing on, and we're talking through it. We're testing, we're thinking of where they'll fit in, where we integrate them. Does this model or something we can recycle? It's in those conversations as we work through the process, as we learn, as we brainstorm and expand on it. That's back to this kind of our dream, having this universal intelligence system that we can build. That's where we pull those little nuggets. It's those derivatives of the linear information that you're speaking with people about in these conversations where I think I learn the most and pull the most insight, and where we may apply that to all platforms. So no, when we take on a new project, I'm front and center there, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever the best that we can do, because it has to be very real. The big thing I've ever learned being in entrepreneurship since I was, 18, trying so many ideas, is that the market is absolutely always right. I will never, ever, ever complain against the market ever. And I say that to like the market gods, so they don't strike me down. That is the most important thing ever. With it will always take some testing, experimentation, because it will always, at the end of the day, come down to people and behavior and that human condition again. So, no, that's the funnest and most important piece of it all. So I like to be front and center, while we're doing that handhold through building the platform. And then as it takes shape, you delegate, assign, certain teams take over different pieces. But yeah, I love being in that brainchild brainstorm room for whatever we're building.
Two quick last questions here. One, the AI, the LLM, large language model, is that something that resides in your space behind your four walls? Is that something that resides on the store within the shop's four walls, or is that in the cloud like Chat GPT? And the second part to this is, how long does it take when someone says, "I got my toolkit here, I've got my crew of 10, and Marcus, you're it." How long does it take to go from you're it to wheels up and you're in the air?
I love it. So especially when there's some urgency to it, they say we have a problem right now. Either we have some leakage, we have a need that we know. We go right to our toolkit, not into building larger platforms. So let's say they speak to me in the morning, I get that call. We're on the phone, we're on a meeting by that day if we can help it. Why not right now? Why not in an hour? Maybe lunch, whatever works best for us. We recommend a tool, whether it's an integration into their current CRM, if it's a CRM themselves, if it's that they need some automation in marketing, if it's communication, if it's nurturement, whatever it is that they feel they need, or productivity. We know what that is by the end of that day. By the end of the day, by the evening, I've told them at least a list of what we think we're going to do. This is what we recommend. Are you good? Okay, we get the go ahead. By the end of the second day, we have at least one, two, three of those systems set up with them missions, their users set up, everybody already on the platform. And but we're fortunate enough to have back end designers, integrators. We have people that can go on to get all their zaps done and integrate if that's the way that we want to go. And if we do get into a full platform, so I'd say 2, 3, 4 days that we could help that company really get into an integration automation flow. Then let's say a year goes by, they're aggressively growing. We have one client that went from 5 people to 31 employees over a year with the systems that we put in place. They just not only because it eliminated a lot of admin, but because they got extremely confident. Like it became a game. Now they had all of this time to just focus on driving forward, driving forward. I'd say that's even one of the biggest benefits of it is you realize how much time you spend throughout a day when you don't have a system worrying about either needing a system, worried what you're losing because of not having that system, doing things 2, 3, 4 times because you don't have the system. We find they accelerate extremely quickly. So if our automations are in days and these growth operating systems, depending on how complex they are, I mean, even this landscaping platform that we did, which is essentially a month. And it's a few modules that we implement right away. We start with the core, that reporting, data collection. Then we build in whatever modules they feel the need right away. Usually it's on job tracking, invoicing, payments, making sure that that core lifeblood of the business is really rolling. And then it's functional. Like they can start getting the benefits from it right away as we click in better employee hours, more advanced reporting, maybe a chatbot, messaging system as we put in these bits and pieces. And I don't know, we're starting to get pretty good at this stuff. Like it's, days to a couple weeks, and we got systems rolling for companies that let them grow within weeks and months after that.
Marcus, you mentioned Kitchener-Waterloo, and I'm guessing that you're not far from GTA, Greater Toronto, but we're also on Zoom, and there may be landscapers in Phoenix that need your call. How big a area do you want to work geographically, and how do we get a hold of you?
I love it. Thank you for that. We have worked across we've fluctuated a few times over the years. We've tried a few things out. We started in Southern Ontario. We branched out to regional in the States. We got international briefly when we were doing a lot in pitch competitions and really supporting a number of entrepreneurs. We're in the UK, the Middle East a couple times, Australia. Right now, we are absolutely best focused to take on Canada and the US across Canada as well as clients. We have partners as far down as Texas and California, US. I can absolutely say with the systems we have, the scalability, the repeatability, that company in Phoenix, we can help them just the same. They're going to be on similar architecture, similar flows. We're going to see the same sort of life that they're having, just in a different place. So, a slightly different demographic and target. And how they get a hold of us, minesonfire.ca. That is our website. And they can always email me directly, Marcus, Marcus at minesonfire.ca. I love taking on like new company owners personally. I love to get to know them myself so we really know where to put them and send them. And we'd be happy to help. Like we want to set as many minds on fire as we possibly can.
Marcus, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today and sharing, the wealth of knowledge, the opportunity that you're offering businesses. To my co-host Wayne Pratt, thank you for being the co-host. You, the Knack for Business listeners, thank you. And if you found this intriguing, if you found this like, holy shoot, I've got a tool belt, but I, either you're getting tired of carrying the tool belt because you can lose like 30 pounds right off the bat, or you're looking to make sure your business has a value that you can sell, or you're looking to grow it, right, and expand. Reach out to Marcus because he's done the everything from the marketing side to growing systems and integrating it. If AI scares you, well, you're already using AI every day. Between your phone and any of the devices in your house, you're already there. Let it leverage it so that it works for you and it's controlled growth and you can scale.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motivate You Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.